Right, good morning, everybody. It's really lovely to see you all. We're here just for the first launch now of the Bradford Writing Project. I'm Jo Siddall and Sarah Scott is with us as well. We're going to be leading the Bradford Writing Project over the next couple of years. We'll tell you a little bit about the project on the next slide. It's lovely to see you all here with us today. The whole idea of the Bradford Writing Project is very much it is by Bradford teachers for Bradford teachers. And so we'll run you through how to conduct the audit and a bit more about the project and where it's going from here. So just a little bit in terms of the background of the project. It's a two-year project that's been funded by the Priority Education Investment Area, which is the new opportunity area. The whole idea of the project is it's very much designed to upskill teachers and leaders across Bradford in how to teach writing to primary children. So we're going to start today with that initial self-audit of writing in school. After that, English leads will attend half-termly writing training for each half a day, which is going to be delivered by a writing specialist who's based in a school. So we've got a team of 30 writing specialists from across Bradford who met together last week for a couple of days last week, and they've started to design the project together. Some really exciting ideas. We're going to have the half-day training sessions. These will be backed up by lots of videos that then you could take back into school. The English lead will then go back into your school and deliver the training that the writing specialist has given them. That will continue for the year. And again, lots of different ways that we can support with writing to hopefully upskill your staff and make sure that we've got some really strong writing teachers in Bradford. We've got people we know who can go to and people who've got a really consistent message around writing. The whole idea of writing came from the idea that actually over the last couple of years, a lot of early language has been supported fairly well across Bradford. There's lots of different ways you can access early language support, either through the Early Years Hub or through the English Hub or through the other projects that Bradford are doing at the moment in terms of things like Kirsty Page input. So there's quite a bit of early language support out there. Hopefully quite a lot of you, I think we've worked with a lot of you through the English Hub as well in terms of writing support, reading support, sorry. But we often get asked about writing. And at the moment, there isn't a major way we can support with writing Bradford. So this was the idea in terms of where the project came from. And again, with writing, it's such a skilled thing to do, doesn't it? Writing comes, and again, reading is the finest teacher of how to write, but we're wanting children to write because they love the shape of stories and sentences and the creation of those different words on a page. So for us, that quote really encapsulates the writing project. We want children to love writing. A lot of children really love reading now, but some children are finding that very difficult to then put into writing because it's a very tricky skill. So when we think about writing, and when we look at the National Curriculum for English, I think this is a very interesting place to start. It encapsulates writing for us. Just take a couple of minutes, have a quick scan through that National Curriculum for English. Can you pick out the key words, the key things that we need to be making sure our writing curriculum covers? Okay, it's a lot, isn't it? There's a lot of things that go into writing. Hopefully, and then an interesting thing to do with your staff as well. Could your staff pick out the key words, the key parts of the national curriculum for English, which really tell us what we need to be focusing on to do with writing for children? These were the ones that we picked out. So writing is all about transcription and composition. Those two elements need to tie together to be able to make a really, really effective writer by the time children leave us at the end of Key Stage 2. Children need to be taught how to plan, revise and evaluate their writing. They need to be able to write fluently and be able to apply their knowledge of phonics, word structure and spelling structure. They then need to incorporate vocabulary and grammar, and they need to be working on their handwriting. So you can see the different elements that are tying together to make a really, really effective writing curriculum. And those things are the things that we are really focusing on over this next couple of years to make sure our teachers know this, our staff know this, and then we're able to make sure the children know these key skills into writing. It's not something that children are able to do automatically. It's something that has to be taught, and it's something that has to be taught really, really well. So just in terms of learning to write, these are the key principles that we're going to be basing the whole project on. The idea that writing must be taught. We need to teach children how to write. You can teach reading, but reading alone isn't a sufficient skill to develop all literacy skills. So yes, you need to be a really good reader. Yes, you need to be able to speak really well, but writing has to be taught. And all pupils, and this includes all our SEND pupils, but all pupils really benefit from writing instruction. That instruction is necessary because learning to write is biologically second. It's not something that comes naturally to humans. It's something that we need to make sure it's very, very clear at every stage of education what the children should be doing. That effective writing instruction makes the how to write really explicit. Pupils, and this is something I think where we've probably diverged in that last few years in terms of what used to happen in schools, pupils will not learn to write even if they're set multiple opportunities to write without instruction. How many times have we done, and I've done myself, creative writing, where you give children a piece of blank paper and go, just write what you like. You can write absolutely anything. It doesn't matter. Just write it down. That doesn't work for children. It doesn't work for adults. Okay, you can't imagine people like J.K. Rowling and Roald Dahl and the phenomenal authors that are out there sitting down with a blank piece of paper and just writing their books. Okay, writing is a really, really complex endeavour. So that learning to write means pupils have to learn and manage multiple skills simultaneously, and it places a really significant cognitive load on pupils. So we have to break it down for them. And the way we can break it down is into the two components of writing, that composition and the transcription. So when we come to looking at the audit, you'll see that these two elements of writing have been split up, and we've broken them down to make sure that composition really includes how pupils develop the knowledge and processes, so they can compose text. They know about all the different domains they're going to write in. They know how to write in different genres, the different texts they're going to be writing, the different sentences they're going to be using, and the kind of words, the kind of vocabulary they'll be using. Separately, but also integrated, are those transcriptional skills of handwriting and spelling. And the more we can automatize those skills, the easier the cognitive load is going to be on pupils. So again, time taken on handwriting and spelling and making sure they just come automatically to children. They know those rules, they know that muscle memory, and they can keep practicing handwriting because it's something that they forget. So we keep going back over and over and again to make sure that their handwriting is fluent and their spelling is automatic. Pupils again need support to learn the knowledge and skills in isolation before they can then put them together. And that knowledge of writing will support leaders to diagnose pupils' needs. It'll help you to be able to audit what teachers know and, more importantly, what they don't know. And then how we can go in and make sure that teachers know how to teach writing. They're not just following a script, but they know what needs to be taught, the structure it's taught in, and how they can teach very specific skills such as modelled writing, such as spelling and how to break down a word into different morphology. So for learning to write, we're looking at pupils being taught the processes that support effective writing, which includes generating ideas, monitoring writing, editing writing, and then refining that writing. That's the structure that we're going to be talking about through this project. And again, we're not coming in with loads of unit plans and saying you have to do this. What we're saying is this is the research, this is the model that hopefully you are already following in your school. to look at a really effective writing curriculum to teach children how to write. So when we then move on to transcription, that transcription needs to have multiple opportunities for them to write. They need that instruction, practice and feedback for their writing skills to improve. In terms of transcription, the writing instruction is broken down. It makes the cognitive load a lot easier. You're not asking them to have that blank sheet of paper and write until they can stop. It's broken down into different bits. It's broken down into the knowledge and skills of handwriting and spelling. Sometimes you might include typing in there, depending on the needs of the children in your school. You might think actually the children in our school learning how to touch type is going to be really important. You might think actually our children already do a lot of work on the screen. It's more important that their handwriting skills are developed. Effective writing instruction really breaks down those components of writing so they can be taught and practiced. Think about, for example, like year 5 and 6. When was the last time they were taught handwriting? Or is it something that we just assume that children can do by, I don't know, the end of year 2 or 3, whatever the skill is in your, wherever the point is in your school? Because handwriting is something, again, that they need to keep coming back to and practicing. Effective instruction and practice makes it more likely that pupils can use their knowledge and skills in fluent and flexible ways, but then they need opportunities to join up or coordinate the skills that they've learned in isolation. So they can join together that handwriting, spelling and sentence writing, again, with scaffolding that eventually then is taken back so the children can do that on their own. Again, as leaders, we need to ensure that teachers at every stage of education understand how to teach writing, that's matched their pupils' need. And again, through this project, we're being very, very clear that not all pupils might be matched with their chronological age. So we're not saying maybe this year group or they have to be doing this. Again, that's for your school. Your school knows your community and your cohort best. What we'll be talking about through this project are the stages that children need to go through, depending on where they are at that moment in time. Again, we're going to be looking today at teachers and leaders having that foundational knowledge, skills and conditions that underpin really effective writing. Do your teachers have phonetical awareness, alphabetical knowledge? Do your teachers know how to teach print? And then the motor skills that children need to be able to then transcribe with their vocabulary, and then hopefully giving the children the motivation to write, giving them those core skills. And then when we start coming on to composition, they can put all those things together to be able to write. Again, as a school, do you have effective instruction for transcription, which involves teaching letter formation, then teaching joint handwriting and the spelling and spelling strategies that go along with that? And does that go all the way through school, or does it stop at a certain point? And then again, transcription is most effective when it's modelled, scaffolded, when children practice and then feedback's given to them. Again, when was the last time you maybe saw a year 5 or 6 teacher modelling handwriting? And is that modelled in books? Is it modelled for the children to see all the time? Have we scaffolded how to spell a word or how to break a word down? So for this part, and the way the audit's coming about is to look at leaders making sure teachers have good knowledge of the transcriptional skills of writing, and then adapt to the pedagogies that are most likely to have a positive impact on their writing development. So do your teachers have those skills, and can they then teach the children those skills? Alongside transcription obviously comes that composition. This is where children we know really, really struggle. So composition involves that thinking of what to write about, and then turning those thoughts, again, can be very tricky, into plans, and then those plans into sentences, paragraphs and whole text. We're not starting with a blank page and saying go for it. We're breaking it down so children can go through the stages they need to go to be effective at writing. So again, making sure we're supporting children to understand the different components, teaching them explicitly how to think of ideas. How many times have we kind of sat in front of the child and go, okay, what are you going to write about? And they can't think of anything. And you go, oh, just write about that. Actually, have we taught them how to think about ideas for writing? And then how can they join them back together to practice coordinating knowledge and skills to write that complete piece of writing? It needs to be broken down. Effective writing means that children have knowledge about the domain they're going to write in. They know about the genres that they're going to be writing. They know that how the texts are going to be composed, the way sentences are crafted and combined, and then the words they need to select from. They need to know that the language they're going to be using in a narrative is going to be very, very different from maybe instructional writing, or it's going to be really, really different from if they are going to end up writing a newspaper report or something like that. Effective teaching of writing composition includes that writing process, as we talked about. Whatever you're following, you'll be following the planning, drafting, revising, editing, and refining sequence. We're making sure that all pupils are involved in this as well, including our SEND pupils. We're making sure that they are taught to write effectively, and we have responsive teaching there. So if those children need more scaffolding, they need more support, that's in place. Those writing strategies again, and we're going to be talking about different ways we can plan with children, maybe use of graphic organisers or a real collaborative approach to editing. Again, there's lots of strategies we're going to cover over the course of this next year. And then metacognition, again, teaching pupils how to manage their behaviour to achieve a particular goal. So children being very aware that actually, yeah, it's tricky, they're monitoring themselves, I'm finding this tricky. What are my strategies when I find things difficult? How do I work out something's working really well? How do I need to know whether actually that's not working for me? I need a different approach. So for the composition side, we're going to be looking at teachers knowing how to teach the whole writing process, and teachers knowing that it can be achieved by teaching writing strategies, teaching metacognition, and ensuring that teaching is planned to support our pupils. A lot there, but hopefully that helps to sort of set the scene and tell you where we're coming from, and then where we've then devised that self-audit for you to hopefully go into school, see what's working really well in your school, see what actually the areas you maybe want to be working on as a team. Those things we just talked about there, again, you might have seen the reading rope before. This is the writing rope that talks about all the different things that go into writing that need to be taught separately, running all the way through it. And again, as we tie them closer and closer together, we're getting more and more skilled writers. Just a little bit about the writing project before we launch into that audit then. The whole idea of the writing project is an opportunity to really reflect on what's working well in your school. It's an opportunity to look at how to develop really good practice in areas where your school might not be as strong or your staff might not be as strong. We're seeing it really as an opportunity to really upskill your writing lead and then consequently your staff team. Hopefully your writing lead will develop confidence that means that they can support new members of staff in school, support your teaching assistants, if you've got teaching assistants, can support looking at that journey all the way through. The writing project is going to give you a set of resources which you and your team can access over the course of the next 2 years to help develop your knowledge. It's going to be a mixture of videos, some unit plans, some resources, some structures that you can use or you don't have to use at all. They're there if you want to, or if you want to kind of look at this is what we've got at the moment. This is what the writing project you're using to match. Is there anything that you want to use that's useful? Actually, is what we're doing really, really useful anyway. And again, hopefully it's a real opportunity to work collaboratively with the other schools across Bradford. We're trying to, if possible, keep you out of maths. We know lots of people work really, really well within their multi-academy trust, but hopefully this is an opportunity to work with schools maybe beyond your maths and learn from other schools as well, learn from the great things that they're doing and share really good practice. And again, it's led by a writing specialist who's currently leading writing in the school. So these are people who are actually on the ground. What they're telling you and what they're training you to do is something they are doing in their classroom and they're doing in their school. All the people we've got on board are writing leads in a primary school, and they've got opportunities. They've worked in lots of schools across Bradford and lots of experience working with different types of children. The writing project, isn't meant to be prescriptive. The aim isn't to overhaul everything you currently do in your school. What we hope you're not doing is just going, oh, we'll just chuck everything, we'll just do what they're saying. That isn't the idea. The idea is it's something you can adapt in your school. It's not a set curriculum to follow. And again, it's not something which can be done quickly, but hopefully it's something that can be done and we can really make sure that there's a legacy there and there's resources that you can keep coming back to as new members of staff join your school to kind of upskill them in the skills that they need to be able to teach writing to children. So just in terms of undertaking your writing audit, before I pass you over to Sarah, who's going to take you through that audit, we will be emailing the audit out to you as well. There'll be an electronic document that you've got where you can use it as a working document. You can share it with other members of staff in your school. The purpose of the audit is it's for you and your school. We're not going to be taking it in. We're not going to be asking for your answers. It's a chance for you to kind of take stock, look at where writing is now in your school. It's potentially useful for governors, maybe a school improvement advisor. It might be useful for your MAP. But hopefully, when you've completed the writing audit, it gives you a really strong picture of where writing is in your school. It will be useful, and we will be asking your writing leads to bring those to the training sessions, just so they can really focus on, well, this is what we said writing is in our school at the moment. These are the things that maybe we need to do next. But again, not something we're taking in, not something we're going to be asking you really to share with us other than in just an informal discussion-based way. In terms of which staff will undertake the audit, again, totally down to you. You might want to take it in different sections. There's 5 sections altogether. You might want to do it all at once over the course of a day or a half day. You might think, okay, let's do a big writing look. Let's get all the senior leaders in and look at it together. It might be where you kind of think, right, let's break it up. There might be something we can look at for the staff team. It might be this section, maybe it's more useful just for the writing lead to complete. So again, decide whether you're going to complete it electronically or on paper. It will just need to take some time for the team to complete. And as you complete it, you'll see you'll probably need to be looking through children's books, planning documents, and any writing assessment data that you're holding in your school at the moment. Okay, I'll pass you over to Sarah now. Just stop sharing my screen. Oh, Sarah, I've done that wrong, sorry. There you go.
Sorry, technology is great when it decides to work. So hopefully you should all be able to see the audit document there. Let's double check. Yep. George, can you give me a thumbs up? Is that the right one? Excellent. So page 1 and 2 of the audit document is all about setting a context for your school. So on page 1, we've just put a little bit of blurb in there at the top, showing what the purpose of the audit is for. And as Jo mentioned, it is really about reviewing your curriculum and looking for those areas of strengths, and then those areas where you want to grow as a school. And we really want this to be a working document, and keep coming back to it, keep looking at it as a team as you go through the course of the project. So on page 1, we'd like to have a brief unpick of the context of the school. So what does SEND currently look like? If you have a nursery provision, what does the profile of your children coming in look like? Then have a reflect on your school's writing journey so far. What have you already tried? What bits did you keep from that practice? Which bits maybe didn't work for you? Maybe who have you engaged with externally? And again, which parts of that were really useful for you as a team and you've made it part of your practice? Which parts did you maybe shelve and go, that's not for us right now? And then really reflect on what is your curriculum now based on. Now that might be a more standardized approach like the right stuff or 3-5 phase planning. That's absolutely fine. This is just the opportunity to reflect on what do we currently have, what's working for us, and do we want to continue to take it forward? And then that last box there is about engagement with staff. So what CPD have your staff had to support them in delivering an effective writing curriculum? And again, think about that induction for your ECTs for new members of staff joining your school. What does that profile currently look like? And then scrolling down to page 2, this is your school data section. So again, looking at that baseline of where do children come in. Now that might be where do children come into your early years environment. So that baseline when their children are joining you at the earliest point. If you've also got late entry pupils, is there a pattern to what the profile of those pupils look like? So then come into your EYFS data, and you might be going, actually, this is about writing. Why am I unpicking that? Listening and attention, that understanding and speaking. Well, we know that for children to be effective writers, they've got to have the really strong foundation to build on. And then the same for your Key Stage 1, speaking and listening at the end of Key Stage 1, depending on how your school chooses to track that, and for writing as well. And then we do just drop down and we take into consideration as well the end of Year 4 data. What does spelling look like at the end of Year 4? And then going into Year 6 as well. So then the actual audit is broken into sections, and I'm going to take you back into the PowerPoint in a moment to unpick those sections in more detail. But the writing audit is designed to look at all the different strands involved in effective writing instruction and look at each one in detail. So there are 3 categories, as you can see. Is this really strongly embedded in all areas of your school? Is it that there's some development required? So actually, we've started looking at this as a team, but we need to do a little bit more work. Or actually, we're nailing this in Year 3 and Year 4, but we need to do a little bit more in Year 1 and Year 2. And then that significant development required might be, actually, we don't have something in place for this right now. And then you do have a section at the side for your evidence for this. So as Jo mentioned, that might be coming from books, it might be coming from conversations with staff, but I just put some form of summary in there about what you currently know. So it might be, actually, under that has appointed a leader who has expertise and knowledge in the interrelated skills of writing. Well, we know that we've got Jen, and Jen has undertaken her NPQLL. She's really strong, or she's been on a lot of training. Just pop that evidence. But again, this is a tool for you as leaders. So I would keep coming back to this as you go through the project. And as you develop practice in your school, you can make those updates there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in to the presentation, hopefully. And if I pull that across, this is where we cross our fingers that technology will work for us. Jo, can you give me a thumbs up if that's visible? Excellent. So the first section, and don't panic, you're going to get this presentation, you're going to get the recording of the session, you're going to get all of the audit documents. What we've done is we've broken down all of the areas, all of the key principles of writing into what we're calling a challenge checklist. Now, if you've worked with the English Hub before, you know we have one of these for phonics and early reading, and we just know how powerful it can be to really break down what is a really vast subject area into manageable chunks. So we're starting with leadership, and you may come to this section as an SLT as you're populating your school improvement plan, and you're really going to reflect on what training has your leadership team had, and really start to look at a self-assessment of where you currently stand as leaders before going into sharing this with staff. So breaking it down there into head teachers and your senior leaders, that we're really looking for that ambition for writing to come from the top. We are aiming for all children to see themselves as writers and to write effectively. That you as a head teacher have appointed that leader who's got the expertise and knowledge, and you're supporting them with that role. This is a really, really important one, and we know that schools are really, really strapped for time, but we need to make sure that the leader for English, for writing, whatever your title for that role is, has the time to fulfill the role. So being able, yes, to go out and monitor, but also to be able to coach staff, be able to work with your team on how to plan effective units, and then how to take that into effective teaching in the classroom. That all staff involved in supporting writing development are appropriately trained. So that's your senior leaders, that's your class teachers, that's your support staff as well. Anybody that is working with your children on writing has received high quality training. When I say training, I am not talking about buying someone in. If you're doing that, that's fine. But what we mean is you're training everybody in how your school approaches your curriculum. And through the writing project, that's what we're aiming to do. Our writing specialists will train your leaders. Your leaders will then have training to deliver to your staff in school. Again, coming back to looking at those members of staff who are supporting your most vulnerable writers. Have they had training, but also do they have the time to support the role? So if you're thinking about that member of staff who's leading the intervention, but they're also a first aider and they're the person who drives the minibus, are they really getting time to lead that role effectively and to lead that intervention well? And again, coming back to children with SEND, are we ensuring that we are putting appropriate support and scaffolding for those learners? And then coming to your senior and middle leaders, again, keeping that ambition. And you can see that that's structured in a very similar way to the head teacher statement, that ambition for all leaders. So as you go through these sections, what we really want you to do is think about, in order to do all of this, what does your monitoring currently look like in school? How often is it happening? Who's doing it? If it's your English lead, that's great, but even better if you can have a team that are coming together to evaluate that practice, as we're saying with the audit. What does your CPD plan for writing look like? So again, it says there under point 2 for senior leaders and middle leaderships with responsibility for writing, that their CPD is just as important as the CPD they're delivering to class teachers, to support staff, that they've really got that up-to-date understanding of the interrelated skills of writing. So then thinking about their confidence as well in supporting and having that understanding of what effective coaching would look like. And then how are you coming back to that and feeding that into an action plan going forward? So again, as we're saying with this audit, it's a tool, your action plan that your leaders are creating based on what they've seen through monitoring, based on the curriculum they've got planned, that is really, really effective and regularly reviewed. So again, what we want to make clear with this is that all of the training your reading leader will attend is designed to support CPD in schools, so you can take those materials, take the presentations, take the resources and deliver them to your staff. So your English lead will be part of a working group. Now, I know some of you have emailed saying we've not been told our groups yet. We were basing that on attendance from today because there are some people that are here today that hadn't done the original needs analysis, and that's great. You are so welcome. We just wanted to make sure that we gave everybody the opportunity to be assigned to a working group. So what we want to end up with is a really sustainable form of CPD for your team, that in 2 years when this project ends, that professional knowledge continues to grow. So again, that's coming back to, as senior leaders, reflecting on your whole school ethos for the writing curriculum. So making sure that your curriculum is broad and balanced and demonstrates progression again across year groups. So do you have a range of genres being taught? As you look at your curriculum, is every year group doing performance poetry, but you don't have kennings being taught anywhere? So making sure that you've got that view of what your whole school curriculum looks like. That your writing outcomes are wide-ranging, purposeful and engaging, and that we're really encouraging children to write for a range of real purposes and audiences. And what you'll notice there is we've deliberately not used the word publishing. Publishing is not copying things up in our neatest handwriting. It might be that our purpose is to create a presentation that children are giving to governors, and they've got to think about their audience there. Again, that thing to consider of, are your staff good writing role models? So actually, are they sharing a love of writing? And we're not just talking about handwriting here, that staff enjoy showing the process of modelling writing, that they enjoy writing for different purposes. I'll hold my hands up. I love narrative. I am not a poetry writer, but am I still bringing passion into my poetry teaching? Point 4 there, coming back to that high quality talk and vocabulary instruction. We're teaching all pupils to control their speaking and their writing. We're using standard English. We may adapt that in terms of formality based on our audience, but we're certainly not going to see a lot of slang in their written outcomes. Again, that we're giving sufficient time to explicit modelling of transcriptional skills, and that is something we keep on coming back to. It's a plate that we keep spinning. So actually, when your children are coming to that SPAG test at the end of year 6, they're not shocked by the term modal verbs because they understand them, they've heard that terminology. Because I'm sure with your phonics programs, you've got children in reception really confident with what a digraph is, because they've been taught it, they've had it demonstrated to them, and they keep coming back to that learning. So we need to do that in our writing curriculum as well. And we really want to ensure that with all of this, we're not overwhelming pupils' working memory. As Jo mentioned earlier, we want children to be fluent writers. That fluency only can come when all of those background skills are securely in place, that children can write confidently for that purpose. That as a school, you're targeting your interventions and you're getting those in place at the earliest point to close gaps in learning. So thinking about what you know about your pupils on entry to your school, whether that's in the early years or whether that's as a late entry pupil, that you have a plan in place to support the child in closing that gap as quickly as possible. And then coming back again to that parental engagement, that the parents are really informed about the school's writing curriculum, and they're given practical strategies on how to support their child's learning at home. So is it that what you're asking of your parents is those non-negotiables of supporting learning spelling patterns when those go home, if that's what you do as a school, and that they value why that's important for children to develop as fluent writers? And then just building on your whole school ethos, thinking about resources and environments, this would be a brilliant one to look at as a team in your staff meetings. So, do your children have access to a wide range of children's literature? So again, thinking about genres, but also thinking about the authors you're choosing. And within those genres, are you reflecting different perspectives? So we talk a lot in reading about books as windows, so into life experiences they may not experience themselves, and books as mirrors reflecting their own experiences back. Does your writing curriculum also support that? That our environment is modelling really age-appropriate writing expectations, and that links to that whole school writing progression. I want to just put a little bit of a word of caution in there with writing progressions. Really think about what they look like in your school. How are the progressions linked to the national curriculum? But also what you want to have as an outcome for writers in your school. And most importantly, are they used by staff? Do you have beautifully detailed progressions, but actually your staff aren't using them as a tool? So really reflect on that as a team. Again, within your writing environment, so your working walls, any examples of word banks, you're providing children with motivation. So we're really inspiring them. Look at this vocabulary that we've unpicked. How can we use that in writing? And we're giving them those tools so they can independently produce high quality writing outcomes, that their writing is theirs and might look, we're all writing a quest story, but mine feels different to the child next to me. Coming back to again, children's writing outcomes are shared and celebrated. This doesn't have to be that beautiful, copied up final writing outcome. It might be that they've done a news report and you film them against a green screen. And again, coming back to really providing a stimulus and motivation for writing. So having access to visit. So that might be an author coming into your school. It might be going and exploring the woods, because we're going to write a quest story that's set in that environment, and we really want to immerse children in the language and the experience. So with all of that, I just want you to think about, what does that profile across your school currently look like? When was the last time that you reviewed the texts that you teach against? Are they still relevant, and do they still meet the needs of your learners? So again, your curriculum in terms of coverage of genre may stay the same year on year, but the drivers for that may tweak and change. So then coming into the writing process and really breaking it down, this is thinking about what your unit plans look like. So really what we're aiming for is that all writing will follow a really structured learning sequence. So we'll explore and evaluate model texts. We'll gather ideas from those texts, from linked texts, from those experiences. We'll use all of that beautiful idea gathering to plan our own. We'll take that into drafting, editing, publishing, whatever that form may take, and then evaluating. So that's us in that evaluating stage, supporting children and reflecting on have they met that aim with the purpose and audience of their piece. But then you as teachers going into, what does my next unit of work need to look like in order to support the aims of getting all children writing really well. Again, coming back to high quality text, and we put in there other stimuli. So using things like videos, using things like real life experiences to really inspire and motivate writing, and really giving clear models for children on what effective writing looks like. Now, again, writing is vast, and we really want staff to model the process of writing to children, including that thinking process. So as they're modeling, planning a text, are they really intentionally going, I'm doing this because I want to give this impression to my reader? Why are we choosing the word ambled rather than the word shuffled to describe a character moving through the setting? What does that mean? That we're going to deliberately show how we edit our writing, both in terms of the sentences we write, but also coming back to those key transcriptional skills. So are we modelling the punctuation and the spelling rules? And really importantly as well, are your staff modelling handwriting that links to your whole school handwriting approach? As we're planning units, we're thinking about involving drama and really high quality speaking and listening activities, and having them there for a purpose, that they need to inform the writing process. So it might be that we're really immersed in a drama activity on Monday and Tuesday, because on Wednesday, we're going to really dig deep into dialogue. So all of the work that we're doing feeds forward into the writing outcomes. As a team, we're making sure that assessment, both our summative and formative assessment, is really clear and really consistent, that we're focusing on quality rather than quantity. So as we're marking pupils' work, as we're giving feedback, we're being really clear on what is working well and how to improve. And then throughout the writing process, the children are being trained on how to effectively self and peer assess and thinking about the process involved in that. So how do we redraft a sentence? How do we edit against a certain criteria? And that again comes back to the teacher modelling that as they go through their own writing process. And then really importantly here, how are we revisiting writing skills over time to make links to prior learning? And that prior learning might be within that academic year, but really importantly, it needs to go back into previous years. So does your year 5 teacher know when key elements were taught in year 4? And are we revisiting that? You know, some schools do a flashback for maths and are now taking that forward into writing, thinking about grammar skills as well. So then coming into transcription, and this one feels vast. So again, what I would urge caution with on this first point, where we're talking about having a consistent approach and having progressions in place, please do not spend a really long time creating documents that in essence reiterate what the national curriculum is saying. But do spend time reflecting on how that national curriculum and how those objectives fit within the journey children take within a year and across your school. We're really ensuring that teachers are going to support children in developing an understanding of morphology and orthography. So actually, are our spelling lessons unpicking the why and how of spelling, and that we're looking for patterns and understanding patterns, not rules? Because as we all know, sometimes the rule applies, sometimes it doesn't. Again, explicitly modelling that in an engaging way. We're not just testing it. And then modelling the process. So as you're writing, are you really unpicking the process? Are you modelling making those mistakes and redrafting as you go along? That we're supporting children in self-regulating, that they've seen us model, edit, redraft, so they're able to do the same. And we provide children with the appropriate scaffolds to do that. So it's really important here that everybody has an understanding of how your phonics program progresses and then dovetails into your spelling. Are your staff able to come back to those key elements of terminology that children have learned later down school, earlier in school, and use that to build on those strong foundations for this year group's content? And again, coming back to that strategic intervention, so identifying those children at risk of falling behind with those skills at the earliest point and putting something in place for them. So, oh, sorry, someone's just said they've got to leave for a fire drill. Don't panic, the session's being recorded. And then finally coming back into handwriting. So again, are your staff really modelling handwriting well? So you've got a really progressive journey from children joining you in EYFS to writing fluently in their own style in year 6. And that journey goes through a range of stages, from supporting those gross motor skills needed to physically sit and having the core strength to sit at a table for a longer period of time and write. That then translating that into those fine motor skills, pencil grip, you need to get that right as early as possible, because that is a muscle memory thing that can be really hard to unpick later down the line. And then how do you build your handwriting curriculum so that each stage builds on the last, so that children develop a fluent, legible, joint handwriting style? Because if they cannot read it back because their handwriting is poor, then how are they going to do all the editing and redrafting needed in their composition? Again, within that, just a few environmental factors to consider. Are your chairs and tables the appropriate height? If I'm really having to fold myself over the table because it's too short, I'm not going to be able to write fluently. What we're not saying with any of this is that you need to formalise your EYFS environment. If you have enough chairs and tables to sit down in reception, great. But actually, if it's a group comes to practice at a table at some point during the day and has that opportunity to write on paper with a pencil, wonderful. We do not want to ban whiteboards and whiteboard pens. What we're saying is it's about children having opportunities to practice. So as you go through then, that last point there is about supporting children struggling with handwriting, that we're identifying them really, really quickly. We're unpicking what the difficulty might be. So actually, is it that that pen grip is now so established in year 3 that they're struggling to write? Is it that they're left-handed and they've not quite worked out their positioning on the table? And with this, what I would say is, when does your handwriting teaching, as Jo mentioned earlier, stop? Really, it shouldn't. We should be coming back to handwriting year on year, because what we want is children that write fluently with style. And then coming into the last section on composition, you might notice here that a lot of these sections as you go through the audit overlap. That is absolutely fine. If you want to copy and paste things across between different sections, go for it. But when we're saying that writing has interrelated skills, it's really reflected in this audit. So thinking about your school as well, do you have a consistent approach to how you teach grammar and punctuation? The approach needs to be consistent, but the terminology you use as a school also needs to be consistent. So coming back to a phonics-based example, if your teacher in year 1 is calling it a digraph and saying that's 2 letters, 1 sound, but your teacher in year 2, in year 3, doesn't have that same approach to describing a digraph, that is going to cause that cognitive overload for our pupils. We need to be consistent in everything we do. As we're teaching composition, we're focusing on what an effective sentence is. Do we recognise it? Do we, really importantly, recognise what it isn't? Do we understand how to construct that? And then do we understand how we manipulate the sentence to enhance meaning and to enhance accuracy? With grammar, we're going to teach it in context, but we're also going to give it some really discrete teaching as well. So we've got a balance between the learning of grammar and the application of it. And really effective teaching would give children the discrete chance to apply in a non-threatening context before they then take that into a final writing outcome. That at all points we're using talk to effectively support grammar and punctuation skill development. And we're giving children lots of opportunity for oral rehearsal. Writing is not a silent process. We're providing effective models for the application of grammar and punctuation. So as we model writing for children, as we share write with children, we demonstrate how to construct sentences in different ways. And we really model that author's voice that we're using as we go through the writer's process. Why is it that we've chosen a really short sentence here? Why is it that actually you've opened this sentence with an adverbial? Really, really explicitly giving children those tools so they develop that voice in their heads as they write. That we're explicitly teaching children the text and the language features with a really clear understanding of why they're purposeful. And that's why they're purposeful for the writer in order to communicate effectively, but also for the reader. that we're going to read and evaluate extracts and short stories to really build a solid background knowledge that they can then recall and magnify and apply when they're writing their own versions. We can get children really flexing those muscles of, oh, I like the way that sentence worked. I like the way this author did this. I want to pull that into my writing. We're definitely teaching our curriculum well. As part of the process, we want children to go back and read their own writing and discuss what they've written. There may not be a huge amount of evidence of that in your books. It may be that children are making notes and edits, but actually that quality discussion of why they've changed things really supports us in unpicking children's understanding of effective composition. Again, coming back to that audience and purpose, our children are aware enough of that they tailor their language and they tailor the way they structure text to support the reader in developing an understanding. And then finally, we're really ensuring that we ensure, that's terrible English, that we're really ensuring that we support children in drawing together and transferring those skills, drawing on prior learning to fluently compose a written outcome. That actually when children get into producing that final piece, they're not sat there going, I don't know what to write, because you've really effectively planned it with them, that they've had choice to do all of their, where am I going to apply this grammar context? Where am I going to apply this level of vocabulary? So then they go into a really, really fluent, purposeful final piece. So Jo, do you want me to stop screen sharing?
No, that's fine, Sarah, because it's just this page now, so that's great. So we know that that's been a quick rattle through of the audit. Actually, you can stop actually, Sarah, please. Can I just change the dates on that?
Yeah.
You just, yeah. I'm just going to share my screen as well. I've got that. So just in terms of the next steps now, we know that was a little bit of a rattle through and a bit of an overview of the audit. The audit documentation, that audit there will be emailed to you today. This session is being videoed, so if it's more useful to then go back and listen to what Sarah was talking about in the small chunks as you do the different parts of the audit, then you can do that, that's not a problem. Hopefully you can use that audit in a way that will work best for your school. That's the way it's been written. It's hopefully meant to be useful for you. Our writing specialists have started to do it in their schools as well. And they're important. It's quite useful to have some discussions about, okay, is our writing curriculum fit for purpose? What's actually happening at the end of the unit? So audit documentation will be emailed to you today. The writing working groups, you'll be notified by next week which writing working group you're going to be part of. The writing specialist will then be in touch to talk to you about the different training windows and when they're going to be doing the different training sessions. So half-day training for writing leads is going to happen during those weeks. So they're the training window weeks. The writing leads are most likely to do that in person. I know a lot of them, when we spoke to them, were very keen to do that in their schools and then maybe go around other schools as well and have a look at different people's contexts and what's happening in different schools to do with writing. It might be virtual depending on the specialist, but again, our specialist will let you know that. We'll also be sending out staff confidence surveys, again, for you to carry out with staff if you wish. Up to you how you do those, but again, it's just a really good way, I think, to get staff's knowledge about writing. How confident do they feel about modelling a piece of text? How confident is their own grammatical knowledge? I know we've spoken to quite a lot of staff. Actually, some of the year 6 stuff, they wouldn't feel confident teaching themselves. So is that an area where maybe you need to upskill staff And again, we'll be providing short clips and short videos that you can share with staff, that you can use maybe as part of training sessions. You might want to do maybe one every fortnight and just upskill your staff in terms of their knowledge of writing themselves. We're also going to be creating an online platform that everybody will get access to. The game will hold a lot of this documentation. It'll hold some unit plans that, again, you could use or not use. It'll hold the videos that you might want to use with your staff. It'll hold some of the training materials that we're going to be preparing as well for your writing leads to be able to deliver to staff. So that's what's coming up in the next probably half a term or term just before Christmas. Hopefully that's given you a good idea about where the project's starting and where we're going next. If you do have any questions, please feel free to ask. We will be emailing out today. If you don't think we've got your email address, I think we've pretty much got everybody's, because obviously if you've been emailed the link there, then you'll know. But yeah, if you don't think you've got our email address, if you could just email in to us, that would be really helpful, at projectlead@bradfordwp.com. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us today. Hope you found that useful. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Sorry, Jo, I'm just going to come back and just recap those last points because it just broke up at the start. So in terms of next steps, today you will get an email with the recording from this session, with the audit documentation and the checklist that we've made against that. Again, that is not something that you're passing back to us. That is something for you and your school. Could you please, if you haven't already, put your school name into the chat, just so that I can ensure that everyone who's been here today gets the email. So we're going to share that with you today. Next week, we're going to send out our writing working group email. So you'll get told who your writing specialist is and the group that you're working in. Those groups may be in person, they may be virtual, depending on need. But we've really tried to ensure that we've paired you up or grouped you with other schools with a similar context. You're also then going to have those delivery windows for when your training will be in those writing groups. We do have sort of a band that we've shared with you previously, like a range of dates that should happen within. But obviously, we're all in schools. If for whatever reason you can't make it to a session, please just send us an email to that project lead at Bradford WP, so we can arrange to facilitate you joining another group if you can't make a session. And as Jo mentioned there at the end, you will all get access to an online platform, and that platform will have example progression documents. We are by no means saying that you need to take those documents and use them in school, use them as a tool. You'll also have example unit plans and how-to videos. So if you've got a staff member that's going, oh, I'm really not sure how to teach fronting adverbials, there will be a guide for how to do that. And that platform will grow and develop as the programme does. And if there's anything within that you're going, it would be really useful to have, drop us an email. We can't necessarily guarantee that we'll be able to do it straight away, but we'll get there, we promise. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm aware there's been an awful lot in this session. And as Jo mentioned, please don't hesitate to get in touch if you've got any questions. Is there anything you'd like to ask now, just before we close the meeting? Oh, I can't tell if that's no questions or just stunned silence, Jo. Like we say, please don't hesitate to get in touch and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you to everyone who's putting their school names in the chat as well. That's great. Thanks, everyone.